GraceandTruthRadio.world proudly presents Life Coaching for Men, improving their relationships with their wives and learning to communicate for a more fulfilling and satisfying marriage. And now, Men Loving Well, with Christian counselor, author, and relationship coach, Dr. Jim Slaughter.
Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you today to our Men Loving Well show. And we're going to address a little bit of a different topic for us today, but in the last few years, I've become very concerned and very convicted about the place of nutrition in the health and wellness picture for our families. I think it's one of the things that a husband and father can do for his wife and children that is a way to love well, and that is to put them on the road to health and wellness. In particular, the best nutrition that they can possibly get. Today I have with us a man who's become a mentor for me. Dr. Joel Wallach is a naturopathic physician and has been, as we talked yesterday, on a health and wellness mission since about age 9, where he felt very specially called to this field. Dr. Wallach, so good to have you with me today. Tell us a little bit about this calling that you felt like you had. Your first name, Joel, we talked about that's a prophet, name of a prophet, right? And prophets, they're not just foretelling, they're also forthtelling, speaking the truth to the people. And so you do this in the nutrition field in particular. But tell us a little bit about that and then about the mission that you're on.
Okay, thank you, Jim, and appreciate the hospitality and the opportunity to speak to your listeners and your community. I started out when I was 4 years old. We had facial tics, which are kind of like grimaces and clenching your eyes closed and barking like a dog and oinking like a pig. And they didn't have a name for it back then. Today they call it Tourette's syndrome, right, which is one of the manifestations of autism. And over a 5-year period between age 4 and 9, my parents had taken me to 20 different doctors. And they would just describe what I had and would prescribe medicines. And, of course, nothing helped. It got worse and worse and worse. And by the time I was 9, the last doctor, the top eye doctor for kids, because of this blinking and crunching of my eyelids and stuff, they thought it was an eye problem. Mary Jane Skeffington from St. Louis.
Really?
Top medical doctor, yeah. Okay. And kind of a grandmotherly type, and she looked at me and she says, well, he needs to be institutionalized. And I said, okay, Mom, what does that mean? She says, well, they're going to put you in the hospital. I said, okay, how long is that going to be for? She says, well, it might be for the rest of your life. And that didn't sit too well with a 9-year-old.
No, good night.
Maybe on the soccer field, but not in a hospital.
Right.
And basically the next day in school, when everybody else went to lunch, I went to the library. I couldn't read, couldn't retain any information. Because of what would be called, again, autism today. And so I went to the library and said, look, I can't read, but I need to see a picture book, a magazine. I need to see something that tells about health stuff. And I looked in the index, these little paperback books. I couldn't find anything under eyes and that sort of things. And so I went through the A's, couldn't find anything that sounded right. And went through the B's in the index, couldn't find anything. Went through the C's and got to cramps. So, well, maybe it's a cramp because athletes complain about cramps all the time. Maybe it's a cramp. So I went to the page it said to go to, and it said it was a mineral deficiency.
Oh, okay.
Cramps are caused by mineral deficiencies in the muscles. So I said, oh, okay, I knew about that. So when the bus would pick me up in the morning, I would feed the calves. Grew up in a little Angus farm in Missouri. And would feed them out of these paper bags, Ralston Purina calf pellets, and alfalfa and corn and vitamins and minerals. And so I began to eat those pellets. After school, I came home, I ran right to the barn, started eating the pellets, and I put handfuls of them in my pants pockets. And the next morning, I threw the breakfast cereal out into the yard for the chickens, and I put all these pellets from my pockets into the breakfast bowl and put milk in there and started eating. My mother was horrified. That's animal food. You can't eat that. She jerked it away from me. My dad took it away from her and gave it to me and said, hey, if he's going to be institutionalized, we haven't tried everything yet. Let's just, what do we have to lose here? Well, to make a long story short, Jim, in 3 days' time, I was cured.
Good night.
After 5 years of getting worse and worse and worse and worse, in 3 days' time, I was cured.
You cured yourself?
Yes. And so I knew that I had been called because no 9-year-old figures that out by himself. It had to be some kind of divine guidance. And I was motivated to make sure everybody else in my situation got the information. And that started me on the trail. And I knew a month later, people started coming to me and said, I hear you can help me get rid of my diabetes. I said, I'm a kid. I don't even know what diabetes is. What do you mean? And so I had to start studying those things and learn many, many things. When it comes to leadership in a community and a family, men have a very special place. We're meant to be the protector, but that's part of the leadership, is being a protector, and that means with information as well as physical prowess to protect your family and your kids.
Sure.
And it's a very special responsibility. It takes two things to be able to do that. Number one, you have to be in good health and a good mental capacity to recognize danger, and also to know figuratively when to pull the trigger and when not, when to stay out of it and when to jump in.
Yeah, good point.
And we have to teach each other and support each other on guarding the family from outside violence, from weather, from nutritional deficiencies, from bad diets.
Right.
We are part of this. And we can't say, well, nutrition is a woman's thing. No, that's not true.
No.
Because when you look at farming, for instance, who is taking care of the nutrition for the animals? The farmer, the guy.
Right.
And so why would you do that for your animals only and not for your kids and your family and your wife? Okay, so, and your extended family, your mom and your dad and so forth. So we have that responsibility, which requires a certain amount of effort on our part to train ourselves. And of course, this is one of the reasons they came up with so many books and CDs and DVDs. Those are the tools so that everybody gets the same information. This is based on literally billions of dollars worth of research, not all of it mine, but literally billions of dollars worth of research. And because I grew up in farming, I realized the importance of nutrition. And everything from anger and domestic violence, suicidal behavior, aggression, autism, Asperger's, Tourette syndrome, which is what I had as a kid. These things are caused by nutritional deficiencies. And you go to a doctor, a psychiatrist, psychologist, they put you on drugs to dampen down your disruptive behavior in your family and community. But it doesn't resolve the deficiency.
Right.
And so the disease actually over time gets worse and worse. They have to get stronger drugs and add in other drugs. So eventually on 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 drugs.
And then they work against each other in the body.
Side effects, absolutely. And your nutrition is still bad. And then you die young at a heart attack or a stroke. And right now, the rate of people going to the emergency room with cardiovascular problems under the age of 40 has gone up 20%.
Good night.
The U.S. government came out in 2004, the CDC came out in 2004 and said, our children will be the first generation of Americans that do not live as long as their parents. Well, to me, that is a huge failure of government, the healthcare system, and parenting. And so we have to step up to the plate and retake our responsibility, because we've given the responsibility over to doctors and people in the government and counselors and this kind of stuff. So we as parents and men in the family have to take over again and get the bad stuff out of the house. I'm not talking about drugs and smoking. Everybody knows that's bad.
Right.
So you got to get rid of the smoking and the drugs. We also have to get rid of the processed meats, things like deli slices and sandwich meats and sausage and ham and bacon and bologna and salami and pastrami and pepperoni and jerky and all that kind of stuff. I learned in 1971 in my thesis for my postdoc, which is like a pathology degree, that if you eat one serving of processed meats each day, like bacon for breakfast or bacon on your hamburgers or some bacon bits in your salad at night, something like that, or sausage or whatever, ham, whatever it might be, you increase your risk of cancer the same as smoking a couple of packs of cigarettes a day.
Wow.
Well, if you smoke or chew tobacco and you're eating that one serving of processed meats each day, you're going to get cancer as sure as there's gravity. Guaranteed. Everybody laughed at me in 1971 when I said that. Well, in 2015, the World Health Organization said it. And just this year, 2019, the U.S. Department of Health said it. Same thing. So you got to get rid of those processed meats out of your life, no matter how good they smell, no matter how good they taste. You have to think back in the old days when the people had country ham. It wasn't sugar-cured ham. It didn't have nitrates in it. It was just either dried in the sun, like jerky, or salt. It was it, salt. Okay? There was no chemicals and so forth, no preservatives.
Right.
Just salt or dried or both.
But it's not that way today for the most part.
No, it has so many preservatives. And when they say nitrate-free, don't believe it. Okay? You can't have it. And then you got to get rid of the oils. Oils cause plaque in your arteries. It's not cholesterol. Cholesterol is your best friend. We'll get into that in a minute.
Okay.
Cholesterol is your best friend. I'll repeat that one more time. Cholesterol is your very, very best friend. But oils are your worst enemy. cholesterol was dissed and demonized back in the 60s and 70s to sell a product. It wasn't a bad theory, it was a fraud, because proactively they knew they were saying something was not correct, but they said it to sell a product.
Wow.
And so you want to stay away from oils. We're talking about olive oil, coconut oil, MCT oils, mayonnaise, cellulose, cooking oils, no oils of any kind. Well, what about peanut oil? No. What about MCT oils? No. What about coconut oil? No. Olive oil? No. Can't have them. Because they oxidize. Even if you don't heat them, they still oxidize and turn into trans fats, heterocyclamines, or acrylamides, which cause plaque in your arteries. It's not cholesterol that causes plaque in your arteries. Mm-hmm. Cholesterol deficiency, which was a proactive thing created by doctors, cholesterol-restricted diets, egg beaters, margarine, things like that. Also, they got you on statin drugs to lower your cholesterol and get it down below 200. And they developed a new disease that had never been seen before. It's called Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is a physician-caused disease. It's the number 4 killer in the industrialized world today is Alzheimer's disease. As horrible as the Nazis were probably the most horrible government ever put together. But they only killed 6 million people in their death camps. Mm-hmm. Since 1942, since they started demonizing cholesterol to sell this product, they've killed over 1 billion people in the industrialized world.
Good.
Because doctors are directing it. Doctors are saying get away from cholesterol. Mm-hmm. And cholesterol deficiency causes this disease called Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is the 4th leading cause of death in the industrialized world. And since 1942, has killed 1 billion people. Mm. And think of all the people who are hospitalized and dysfunctional and so forth because of dementias caused by a cholesterol deficiency. 85% of your brain is cholesterol.
Well, I've heard you say this and talk about this a number of times, and so we've been alerted to that. Yes. And so I know that you recommend using more butter, for example, in cooking and on food and that kind of thing, and not the oils because yes. they're so damaging.
And I actually have gotten together all the research because nobody wants to believe that because their doctors are telling them a different story. So we put all the research into a CD called A Stick of Butter a Day Keeps the Doctor Away. It's not an apple a day keeps the doctor away. It's a stick of butter a day keeps the doctor away.
Right.
And you want to be eating 4 to 6 eggs twice a day with soft yolk, soft boiled, soft poached, soft scrambled butter. And that will, as long as you're absorbing, which is another issue, you will totally avoid Alzheimer's disease. Even if everybody in your family has gotten it. It has nothing to do with genetics. It has nothing to do with anything like that. It has to do with obeying really bad information and directives from doctors.
Right. I've followed your career and the things that you've written, and I know that you were Nobel Prize Nomine, laureate, and I know that you have a publication, a book that's in the Smithsonian Institute when you work with Marlon Perkins.
Yes. Well, and that was my thesis for my postdoctoral fellowship as an equivalent of a PhD degree. And it's in the Smithsonian Institute as a national treasure. Very proud of that. Very few people get that designation as a national treasure because they showed there were no genetically transmitted birth defects. There's no genetically transmitted diseases, which is just the opposite of what you're taught.
Right.
Well, we have 5 generations of cancer in our family. It's got to be genetic. No. And you eat the same way, you cook the same way, and you all smoke.
Right. And you've authored a book called Epigenetics in which you develop that and really demonstrate that science. And yes. So I really appreciate your contribution in that field. It's an eye opener for people who are willing to listen. Do you find that it's difficult to get people out of the mindset that we tend to get in when it comes to traditional medicine, though?
Yes, it is a dangerous situation because people will believe their doctors before they believe God.
I think that's true.
Okay. It's very scary. And what happens here is if you take your car to a mechanic, you say, look, I'm tired of paying a premium price for oil. I live in Texas. Is there anything I can do to not have to pay so much money for oil? And they'll say, well, yeah, just use 6 quarts of dirt from your backyard, put that in your car. There's bound to be some oil in there. This is Texas. An insane person would not do that to their car.
No, they would not.
Okay.
Right.
On the other hand, if you go to the doctor and you're 55, 60, 70 years old and you have 5 college degrees in sciences and everything like that, and you're a professor at some university, and you say to the doctor, I'm really, really tired of people coming to me about supplements and vitamins and minerals, and I don't want to take all those pills in addition to eating well. So is there anything to me taking supplements? Should I be taking vitamin and mineral supplements? And the doctor says, nah, just eat well, get everything you need. And so that person that has those 5 scientific degrees as a professor of science in a university will say, oh, okay, And then they die. In fact, there was a guy who got the Nobel Prize from the University of California, San Diego. He dropped dead of a heart attack. He was 47 years old. He got his Nobel Prize in nutrition.
Oh, my goodness.
From the University of California, San Diego. And that's because he's using all these oils as salad dressings on his salads and cooking oils, because he didn't want to use any saturated fats and cholesterol, which the doctors had convinced him were bad. It's very, very scary. And so, again, we as parents, as fathers and husbands and brothers and sisters, we need to make sure the community knows the truth about nutrition, the responsibility to supplement. And this is where the book, Dead Doctors Don't Lie, Epigenetics, the book, Immortality, comes in. Because if you look at the people, the top 20 longevity cultures, according to the National Geographic in the blue zones, 19 of the top 20 cultures are third world cultures. They have no doctors, they have no insurance, they have no government insurance, they have no hospitals, and yet they live to be 160, 180, 200 years of age.
Good night.
They're the top 20, okay? Only one first world culture in the top 20 is in a first world culture. The rest of them are third world cultures. Is because of dumb luck, they live in places that have the nutrients in the soil that are required to make you live a long time, and they don't use electricity. Electricity is one of our worst enemies. Prior to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday, September 4th, 1882, on Pearl Street, New York City, everybody in America used wood for fuel. If you needed fuel, it was wood. And you put the wood ashes into your garden. And that's been since the days of Jesus. People were putting wood ashes in their garden. And, of course, your blueberries were bigger, and your corn was 5 years of corn per stalk instead of 3. And things flourished. Your plants were strong enough to repel bugs, so you didn't have to sit there and pick them off yourself, use chemicals. And when electricity came along, everybody went to electricity and gave up the wood stoves. They didn't have the wood ashes to put in their gardens anymore. All these diseases started appearing, and our lifespan started dropping terribly. We got diseases nobody had ever heard of, which they blamed on bad genes. Yeah. And here's why. Wood ashes, Jim, are not carbon. 99% of that powder we call wood ashes were the minerals were left when you burnt the wood for fuel. Now, those trees only need 3 elements from the soil, just like all other plants, to make good seeds for the next generation. But if there's 15 minerals in the soil, or 25 or 50 in the soil, the tree will suck them up. Put those wood ashes in the garden, your food plants suck them up. You eat the food plants, you get your minerals that way. Okay. So when they went to electricity, all that mineral supplementation went away. Farmers used to be the healthiest and longest lived people in America. Now they're the shortest lived and the sickest people, because they're dealing with all the farm chemicals plus no nutrition, because they use electricity. Whether it's windmill, whether it's solar, whether it's hydroelectric, it doesn't matter. You're still not putting wood ashes in the garden anymore, so you must supplement to make up that difference. Nobody made up the difference because they didn't realize they were getting nutrients from the wood ashes in the garden. So when we went to electricity, the piece that was left out was they didn't replace their source of minerals.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that was the big downfall. But we're in animals, we make sure in their pellets they're getting all the vitamins and minerals because it's a financial piece. If the veterinarian's out there every day and he's charging all this money, you're going to go broke with all those sick animals, or the babies dying of birth defects and all that kind of stuff.
And that's what clicked in your head, you know, when you're at such a young age. You put that together and figured that out.
Well, I figure I had a little help from above.
The Lord directed you. Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that about you. And there was one thing I wanted to have you address too, especially for guys who are into working out, athletics. Often guys think, you know, if I just have a good workout regimen, I'm good. My body's going to last forever. I read a book decades ago by a guy named Jim Fixx, and I was starting to run, and then before I knew it, Jim Fixx died.
51 years old.
Yes, a young man.
Cardiomyopathy heart attack while he was running a marathon.
Isn't that incredible?
He was a professor of economics at Yale, I think it was, in the Ivy League schools. And even Reggie Lewis, 28-year-old captain of the Boston Celtics.
Yes.
He drops dead at age 28 from the same thing. Now, I've done 1,700 autopsies on kids under the age of 10 that died of that heart attack. It's published in 3 languages. Wow. 1,700 autopsies of kids under the age of 10 that have died of that hypertrophic cardiomyopathy heart attack. I learned a lot. Number one, it's a simple mineral deficiency. So when we came up with our sports drink, Rebound, Rebound has 100 nutrients, and including that nutrient that prevents that heart attack. Okay, yeah. All the other sports drinks out there have 2 to 6 nutrients. I have 100. They have 2 to 6, none of which are the ones that stop that heart attack. And the important thing you have to appreciate is I actually came out some years ago with a CD called Exercise Without Supplementation is Suicide, when you take all professional sports combined, Jim, the average lifespan of professional athletes, despite having the best dietitians, best sports medicine doctors, they can afford the best food, they exercise, they get paid, some of them, millions of dollars per game.
Yes, yes.
Their average lifespan is 62, except for football, Canadian Football League, and NFL in America is 51.
Good night. That is amazing, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Now, the Rebound product, you worked with Theo Ratliff with that, the NBA star, and you've done a lot of research and put it into that, and it's an excellent product. Before we finish, I want you to talk about some of the products and the longevity company that you founded, and it's important for our men to know about that. Yes. We're really committed to that, and we're in with longevity and the products. We really believe in that, and we believe in what you do with that. I want these men who are listening today to hear something about that.
We're trying to make it easy, Jim, and basically what we do for animals, we put it into a pellet so they can't sort through and just eat the corn.
Right.
Okay, if you give them mixed grain, a bucket of mixed grain, they're going to sort through and eat what they want and leave it the rest.
That's true.
Okay. And so we learned that if we pelletize it, we got a better result. Okay, and so what we did was come up with what we call the Healthy Start Pack. It has all the known essential nutrients, the 90 essential, 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 minerals, 3 fatty acids. It's one of those per 100 pounds of body weight. It'll give you everything you need. The caveat is we're assuming you're eating well and avoiding all the bad foods so your absorption is at 95% or better.
Right, okay.
If you're eating gluten, wheat, bread, and oats, and your absorption is down to 3%, doesn't matter how much you supplement, you're still in trouble.
Okay, repeat that, where that gluten comes from that you were talking about.
Wheat, barley, rye, and oats. There are no such things as gluten-free oats. They try and sell you that, but there are none. No wheat, bread, rye, and oats. Mm-hmm. They actually cause a damage to the lining of the intestine, and your efficiency of absorption goes way down. So it doesn't matter what you eat. That old adage, you are what you eat, is not true. You are what you absorb. Okay, so that's very important.
Yeah.
So let's assume for a moment you're gluten-free, you're not eating fried foods, you're not eating sugar, you're not eating oils, you're staying away from processed meats, you're doing all the good stuff, and you're taking your Healthy Start Pack, you're going to absorb 95%. There's actually 248 nutrients in there, including the 90 essential nutrients. Then we have what we call a secret sauce for 900 different diseases.
Wow. Good.
Let's say you have type 2 diabetes. We have what we call the Healthy Blood Sugar Pack, which is the Healthy Start Pack, plus the secret sauce added to that. And I don't care if you've had type 2 diabetes for 30 years, usually in 30 days you're an ex-diabetic.
Good.
Because it's a simple nutritional deficiency. It's not genetic, as doctors will tell you. That's false information. And then bone-to-bone arthritis. A lot of athletes come to me with joint problems and cartilage and ligaments and tendons and muscle and connective tissue and so forth. And they don't want to get surgery and get disabled or maybe never be able to play again. So I said, give me 90 days. We get them off all the bad foods they maximally absorb. And then we put them on what we call the Healthy Bone and Joint Pack. We throw in a couple of other things for connective tissue, like our MSM and vitamin D3 and so forth. And usually within 60 to 90 days, they're fully 100% back because their body's able to regrow the cartilage and ligaments and tendons, connective tissue. They don't need to have surgery.
We had just an aside, we had a client in the office the other day who said that their doc told them that their cartilage is gone and it can never grow back. But now we know that's not true.
That is not true. In fact, back when I first started this, gosh, this got to go back into the 70s, 50 years ago. I had a big run-in with the Harvard Medical School, the orthopedic department.
Okay.
Because I'm in the newspaper, because I'm healing professional athletes and college athletes, and Olympic athletes, and very famous people. And so they're telling the story that, I had a joint problem, and Doc Wallach used his, back then I called it the pig arthritis.
Right.
Because I was a veterinarian, I wasn't a physician yet. And so Harvard says there's no way you can regrow cartilage. So they took my pig arthritis formula, they gave it to some of their patients, regrew their cartilage. So they were going to patent my formula. So I had to go out. So we were going to have to go. It was a big newspaper article in the New York Times, so I got on them. And we had a big run-in, of course. We came up with two things. Number one, we patented our Healthy Bone and Joint Pack, but we also passed a law, a federal law. Three of us in longevity, myself, a gal by the name of Shar Murphy, and Clinton Miller.
Okay.
Three of us got this law passed in Congress. This law will be there forever. It's called the Deshay Act. And the Deshay Act says that forever, vitamins and minerals and amino acids and fatty acids and all essential nutrients will never be prescription items. People will always be able to get it through the mail by going into a health food store, a grocery store, pharmacy without a prescription. and you don't have to go to a doctor to get a prescription for vitamins and minerals.
So that's why I can walk into a CVS or an Albertsons or something, and I can buy EFAs, essential fatty acids, off the shelf.
And cartilage stuff, you can buy calcium, you can buy sulfur, you can buy magnesium, you can buy vitamin A, you can buy vitamin C, you can buy all this stuff without a prescription because of that DSHEA Act.
Wow. You know, you guys have done service after service after service for the public when it comes to nutrition. The word is getting out. I mean, you've been doing this for 50 years or more, right? And so now people are beginning to know about longevity, and they know about the products. They are beginning to become a little bit more skeptical about traditional medical approaches to health, and knowing that we must supplement in order to stay well. There's so many other things that you are doing, and I wish we had more time. Could we do this again someday? I would really like to.
Because it's an honor. Thank you so much for letting me share. And if I had to throw in one more piece.
Yes.
Every family should have a meeting every week with their kids and spouse, and even if they live in different states. We've got the technology now with telephone conferencing and Skyping and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So people can have a family meeting once a week for a half hour, an hour, and we have 14 best-selling books which cover all this information. We have, 100 CDs and DVDs and things like that, so that you can listen to it when you're driving around your car distances, as opposed to just listening to hip-hop music and that kind of stuff. And it's worth the investment in time to teach your family. You'll add 50 years to their life, healthful years, save them an enormous amount of unnecessary misery. You'll save them an enormous amount of money. And what greater service can you give the Lord than to save his people?
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so that's the way I look at it. And personally, because of that, I don't take any income from the sale of our products. I don't take any income at all. I don't get a check from Longevity.
Good, nice.
I do not get any money from Longevity one way or another.
Okay.
I have to pay for my own supplements. Okay. I set it up that way.
Wow.
I didn't want people saying, well, Wallach, you're making all that money, that's why you're saying those things. And so I purposely set it up so I get no financial remuneration from the sale of the products or any diagnoses or anything like that. I am a licensed physician in California and Oregon, and all my diagnoses are free, and my monitoring of disease processes are free. I do all that for free. And as I go from town to town, people feed me. They give me breakfast and dinner.
Right.
And I eat on the airplane.
So, wow, thank you again, Dr. Wallach, for coming and being willing to be a part of the show today. And let me do a couple of things. You've been listening. Let me just repeat. You've been listening to Dr. Joel Wallach, Nobel Nomine.
And I should tell you, it wasn't a Peace Prize, okay? I was nominated because I discovered the first non-human case of cystic fibrosis and proved that it was not genetic.
Wow, yeah.
Okay, and it was professors from the university, Dr. Gerhard Schrauser, who nominated me for that prize in medicine. It was for medicine.
Okay.
And also discovered the cause, prevention, and cure of muscular dystrophy, and also the cause and prevention of crib death. It has vanished in some states completely now because we've forced the manufacturers of baby formula to add that nutrient to the baby formula.
Well, thank you for your work. Thank you for the people that you've drawn around you to
yourself.
Well,
for spreading the message.
Absolutely. We're doing that as best we can. And if you want to know more about this, let me give you a phone number to find out more about this or even order products. 817-991-4964. Dr. Wallach, thanks again for coming. We appreciate you, and we're glad to be a part of it.
Thank you so much, Jim. Very proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you again for joining us. Men Loving Well airs live every Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Central Time on graceandtruthradio.world.